waiting. I was like, man. All right, folks, we are going to get started. Thank you for braving the cold, and we're hoping tomorrow does not get real cold, but it's not looking good. So thank you for coming out tonight. We appreciate it. This is our Town Hall number 2, and we are here to share the progress we've made on our designs of the new school buildings. And just to bring everyone up to speed briefly, real quick, actually first let me do introductions. My name is John Hamstra. I'm superintendent here at Southwest Local Schools. We have a ton of our administrators here. They can introduce themselves a little bit later tonight as we do some breakouts. We also have board members Jeff Biddle in the back. Mr. Biddle, please wave. We can give him some love. There was no love last night. Last night we had our 9th grade orientation. I introduced everybody, and everyone just stared at us. So we're going to give some people love today. Miss Linda Peak, board member. Mr. Mike King, board member. Miss Tricia Evanson, board member. And I believe that's it for this evening. Is that correct? Is Susan here? Okay. Thank our board for coming out. We appreciate you guys coming out. Real fast, we passed a bond issue in November of 2017 in the neighborhood of $76 million locally and another $27 million from the state, which is huge. And it's going to provide for us 3 new elementary schools, a new middle school, and a $10+ million renovation to the high school. The 3 new elementary schools, just so everyone's on the same page, we're building a new elementary school behind the current Crosby Elementary. We're building a new elementary school behind the current Harrison Elementary, and then we're building a new kind of centralized, we call it for lack of a better name as of right now, elementary school behind the current high school, so closest to the airport. We're also building a brand new middle school, which is going to go behind where the current high school, middle school are now. So in that area behind, and we'll talk a little bit about what the central campus is going to look like and how it involves athletics. Mr. Mivers will be here to share some of that. And we'll bring everyone full circle. The goal tonight is for you to be extremely informed, more informed than anybody else in the community. That's the goal of this presentation. We don't want anybody to leave with a question. We want everyone to leave with answers. And we're going to set tonight up in a way that hopefully provides that. We're going to start with a general overview presentation led by our architects. We're then going to get into a full group question and answer. That's why we have the microphones up here. We are recording tonight's event so that we can post it on our website and social media for those that can't make it. And then at the very end, we're going to do small group breakouts up here between the upper tier and lower tier. We're going to bring tables out. We're going to send the architects up, our administrators up, and we're going to hopefully answer any and all questions that exist at that point. So really, when you leave, there should be no questions unanswered. And that's the goal for the presentation this evening. So I hope you're excited. I hope you came ready to ask questions and also to kind of take it in, because tonight is as current as we can get. They wouldn't even show me the presentation earlier today because they're that excited about it and they want us to really be impressed. So that's good. What's wrong? Thomas, yes, our treasurer is also here. Mr. Thomas Lowe, please stand. Thank you. Sorry, Thomas. Next up, we have our architects, SHP, Jeffrey Sackenheim. You have the mic.
Hey, thank you. Yeah, my name's Jeffrey. I'm an architect at SHP, and you'll hear from me for a little bit tonight. You'll hear from Jenny, our lead interior designer. We have a few other folks from the design team here tonight. Jordan, while we're clapping for everybody. Peter, Abby, and then about a dozen other people who aren't here. I think Brandy's on her way here. She must be caught in traffic. We're excited to bring you guys up to speed. I'm guessing that people didn't sit any lower because you have great line of sight from the middle of the audience. Okay. We're going to present from down here because we want to point out a couple of things, and we'll also have to run back up to the computer to show you some animations that we have on what these buildings will look like. So our objective for tonight, like John said, is to provide as much information and update on the projects as we possibly can. We'll talk at the beginning about the schedule and budget. We will give an update on Harrison High School. We'll take a look at each of the site plans and what's currently in play at each one of those building locations. We will do plan reviews for the elementary school. We'll then show you animations, renderings, videos of walking through the elementary school and then flying around the outside of the elementary school. Then we'll look at plans for the middle school, junior school, and then also share with you animations, videos of an interior walkthrough and then another exterior fly around, okay? So high level on schedule, and Pete Becker from Skanska Megan is going to chime in here too. Pete and his group will be ultimately the folks building all of these buildings, so they're an integral part of our team and have provided a whole bunch of information and help on getting us to where we are today. So high level from the design side, we typically work in 3 distinct phases. There's schematic design, design development, and construction documents. Each phase gets more specific and more technical and more refined. So we are just coming out of the completion of the first phase, schematic design. We are now officially in design development. Big picture, we were probably about 4 to 5 weeks behind where we wanted to be, and really the primary issue driving that is that we did experience some budget pressure reconciling the 4 new buildings in particular. The state, who is a partner of the districts in these construction projects, has a policy that we cannot move from one phase to the next until our teams have reconciled the budget to be a 0 delta. So there's a ton of responsibility to make sure that we're both as clear with our teams as possible on what's going to be in these buildings and how we're going to build them and what types of mechanical systems and et cetera, et cetera. So that process took us a little bit longer than what we had originally anticipated. Pete can speak to that a little bit more in a second. Big picture, the end date doesn't move, so we're making that time up. So,
you know, like Jeff talked a little bit about the market pressure and the budget we developed at SD. SD's schematic design, and we go through design development, redo this thing, make sure we're on budget. But really, the end of the day, you know, the goal of the job is to break ground in the summer of 2019. So it won't be long, and it will stop raining, because if we break ground in this time of year, it's very expensive, and we sit around and push mud. So the goal is right now, this team, we're going to break ground this summer. We haven't dialed it in, you know, whether that's July, August, or August and September, but it's definitely when the weather's productive. You know, we go through this thing called a GMP process. You know, that right now that's scheduled, so at the end of all the design phases, we stop the documents, we check in, we guarantee a price on the documents. You know, we got to be on budget. You know, you heard of Jeff talk about the state's policy, 0 delta. So if the budget's $5,000 for something, it can't be $5,000.50. It's got to be $5,000. So the GMP process locks that in, sets us up to where we can get through the approval process. Usually that's maybe between a month or 2. That's how long that process goes, but it's critical, and it sets expectations, schedules, you know, our commitment to the taxpayers and the community and the district, as well as our co-owners, the district and the state of Ohio. Once we get through that, you know, in the summer and fall, basically, boom, then this thing starts taking off. You start going vertical with the building. You know, if we come out of this ground in the fall of 19, that's a good time of the year to be bidding right before that. And then, so the key is hitting the market. Right now, we're seeing jobs where, you know, the jobs that are out in front of the other jobs have really good, less budget pressure. They have good bid day coverage, and what's the end of the day? That means more stuff we can put into the building for the kids in the community to use, as opposed to, instead of just being a standard stripped down model. So that's our goal. You know, obviously we're going to dry the buildings in, complete them in the spring of 2021, and then take all the 3-month summer pressures off of districts. This job's set up really nice to where we get the buildings done early. The district has time to move in. Staff has time to transition slowly, and not be a 2 to 3 week kind of crunch that typically occurs in the K-12 world. So that's very blessed, especially when you're doing 4 buildings at one time. It should be a pretty nice transition. So anyway, the next piece is budget. So I don't want you getting hung up on all the math and numbers here, but I just look at the bars, okay? So the blue bar is the budget on the far left of each of the buildings. So each one of those group of bars is the elementary and the middle school, and over there is the total. So when we came back at the end of schematic design with the team, with Jeff and all his team and their consultants, the district and the state and the core team that put a lot of work into this, you know, we had to go in and say, okay, where's the number at? So the green bar is where the number started. Then we met again at the red bar in December. So the timeline it takes sometime to say, hey, instead of having this system that's really high performance, you know, let's go for this system that's equally high performance, but it might save you a couple $1 million. That's kind of how that process works. And then in the far bar on the right, I guess the dark blue bar is what we presented to the board in December, basically with a plan to come back, get us back to budget, and we're going to sort of use like around $3 million of the renovation dollars. It's going to get phased back in because that work and the contingency returns that are going to happen won't occur until that last phase of those renovations. So it's really, we're just delaying that decision to get the most you can for the buildings at the one time you got to build them. So with that, enough of my stuff. Let's go look at some fun stuff, and Jeff and his team can take it from there.
I want to spend a minute on the high school. Pete just mentioned that we did make a presentation to the board, I think right before Christmas break, with a request to move about a little bit north of $3 million over into the co-funded project. So the high school, for the sake of clarity, is being funded 100% locally. The state is not a partner in that. So we moved some money over to help with the co-funded projects. As Pete mentioned, that money should return back to the district when we close the jobs out. Pete used the word contingency. There are a lot of safeguards that are built into these budgets to protect them through the completion of the design phase and then also through the construction phase. So we provided a simulation, summary, forecast, fairly conservative, based upon the work that our teams have done together in the past at, say, Fairfield or Northwest, and put on paper that we feel like all that money should be able to come back to the district. That kind of leads into a brief explanation on the work at the high school. That work over the course of the last several months has been prioritized. The number of improvements that are planned for that building, that prioritization has occurred. That has also then led to a sequencing of what we're recommending, how that work should be deployed actually in the building. So it's going to be phased over 3 summers because obviously that building is occupied and very busy. So for example, the first summer, we're going to put roughly $1 million or so into place, and that's primarily in some very needed roof repairs and masonry restoration repairs, envelope repairs. The subsequent 2 summers will start to include improvements that are a little bit more tangible and things that you'll see and that can directly benefit the academic environment. So the prioritization has occurred. That's what that spreadsheet off to the right is. The various color codes represent the various summers. So you can see the smaller light pink salmon color at the very top is the work that's planned for this summer 2019. A lot of that work is informed by what we call due diligence. So we're out on site analyzing the condition of the existing masonry, and we're using thermal imaging cameras to find wet spots in the roof so that we know areas that specifically need to be replaced and repaired. So all that work's been going on. It's not really pretty picture stuff, but it's super important stuff. We are in the process now. The district has assembled a team of teachers and administrators to help inform the next phase of the high school, which is when we're going to start getting into the actual planning of what happens inside of the building. So stay tuned on that. There'll be more information coming on that. I'm going to let Mark talk real quick about athletics, and then I'll come back and talk a little bit more about the general layout of the site plans, because there's a game going on right now.
I don't even need to hang on to that. I'll just pull this off. Obviously, it's a little low for me. So, first off, thank you guys very much for letting me speak here. I'm going to take about 4 minutes. I think that's what I was given. Just for you that do not know who I am Mark Mibers. I'm the athletic director and assistant principal at Harrison High School. Yes, I will rush a little bit through this. I want to start also by saying if you have questions, I will be right next door. We have a girls' basketball game that's going on right now that we're getting ready to tip off the varsity versus Edgewood. So if you leave from this presentation here and you have athletic questions, I'll be here till 9:30. Please come on over, enjoy the game, and obviously speak with me in regards to athletics. What you can see from the slide that's up here, you can tell that the buildings are going to be impacting some of the playing surfaces, whether it's practice or game that we currently use here at Harrison High School. This is also going to provide us with an opportunity to expand our athletic facilities to match the state-of-the-art buildings that we're going to receive. The Harrison Athletic Boosters are going to be taking this project on under the leadership of Joe Fetty. He is our booster president. And we're looking at $3 million total, and again, no tax dollars. So I'll say that again, no tax dollars, privately funded. We'll start with phase 1. If you can see where the current football field is, that is staying in place. We're looking at the installation of turf going into that stadium. If you look, I'll call it north, which is going up on the projector there. If you look up where baseball is, you will notice that the soccer complex is gone with the construction. Ultimately, you're looking at, we're losing that varsity playing space, which is technically the outfield of the baseball stadium. We're going to be moving that inside. Again, we're going to be moving that into the stadium with the turf installation. That is going to be phase 1. The Harrison Athletic Boosters are forming a turf committee. That committee is going to meet next month at the end of February to start really diving into the nuts and bolts of what the turf is going to look like, the different styles of turf, whether to have a pad underneath the playing surface in regards to concussions and other injuries. But the boosters are going to be taking this on again. No tax dollars will be used, and it will all be privately funded. We'll go to phase 2. I'll touch on this briefly. We are looking at and examining our current visitor bleachers. For those of you that have been in the community for a number of years, you will remember a time when the visitor side was our home side. Those bleachers were put in 1970. Again, it was another booster-driven project that was born then, right around 68, 69. They were installed in 70. Those bleachers are coming up on 50 years of use. So obviously their lifespan has ended. Phase 2 is going to look at what we're going to do with those bleachers. Phase 2 is also going to look at, you're going to see the practice fields at the bottom. We're going to need to install additional grass space for our teams to practice. Again, that is grades 9 through 12. And if you think about each program is going to have a freshman, a JV, a varsity. So you're going to have multiple athletes that are going to utilize that space. And then last but not least, the big boy in the back, baseball, softball. That is phase 3. To give you an indication of the timeline, we're looking at about 2022 in regards to that facility. You'll see that, again, if you look north of the stadium up, you can see that varsity baseball and varsity softball have a possibility of being saved for a little bit, but eventually that space is going to be taken over as well. So we're going to need a state-of-the-art baseball, softball complex, and that's what you can see is put in the back half of our current space here at the high school. Ultimately, again, it's a major task. It is something that I'm proud that our boosters are willing to take it on, and I want to let everybody know, awesome news, good news, the goal is to raise $3 million. We have currently already raised $1 million. We have, thank you. Yo, you can clap. I think it's, we have partnered with Mercy Health. That Mercy Health partnership with the district and the Harrison Athletic Boosters has grown. We started partnering with Mercy roughly 5 years ago, I think, Mr. Hamster. I think it was 5 or 6 years ago when we started to really look at the nuts and bolts and what we can do with Mercy Health, and they have come through with $1 million already towards this project. So with that being said, the other $2 million is going to rely on, obviously, partnerships we have with other entities. You're looking at local businesses, obviously alumni, and then we are also looking at a few grants that we'll study that will impact football, baseball, and softball. So again, if you have questions, please come over, enjoy the game when you leave this presentation. Sorry if I took too much of your time, but we are on the cutting edge of an incredible time here in Harrison. And as a Harrisonite, I guess I'll use that term, as somebody that lives here and works here, there's not a more exciting and better time to be here. And I can't wait to be a part of it. If you have questions, again, come over, enjoy the game. Thank you guys very much. Good.
It's a tough act to follow. So I'll talk about the buildings again from the site plan perspective. So if you haven't oriented yourself already, this, if my pointer works, well, the existing high school is off to the right of the page. There it is, right here. The existing junior school is up on the corner at Dry Fork and West. Again, this is the existing baseball, softball. So what's proposed for this site is that there will be a new access drive that will come in off of Dry Fork. We'll provide a long parent drop-off and pickup for kids, staff parking and visitor parking in the middle, and then the main entry to the new junior school will be right here. When we look at the floor plans, you'll see that there's an administrative suite right here, there's a special events entry right here, and there's a bus entry to the rear of the facility. So if we were to continue down this drive and head towards the elementary school, which is right here, we would come past a shared bus lot. These buildings start on staggered times, so we can bring elementary school kids in and then junior school kids. So we'll have a shared bus lot. Once buses are done with morning drop-off, this can be gated off, and this can become hard surface play for kids during the course of the day. So there'll be basketball goals and hopscotch and all sorts of other things out there. Similar arrival point for the elementary school in that we would come down this drive, turn on again a large parent drop-off loop here, again with staff and visitor parking in the center. If we continued on past the elementary school, you'll see in a little bit lighter gray here. It's currently being studied regarding a potential connector that would go out to New Haven. I will tell you that it is complicated and it is fairly expensive, but we're still very much analyzing it. I think it would make a whole bunch of sense, but it's not 100% guaranteed in the project right now. If we were to continue around this way, some of this work, basically beginning at about this point, is connected to some of these site improvements associated with the high school. So there's money built into the budget as we consider moving certain elements of the inner workings of the building from one corner to another. We're beginning to plan from a site perspective how this might change. So we may officially allow two-way traffic here. We may officially separate student traffic at this corner. We may carve out and create a dedicated new access point here for visitor parking, which would be immediately adjacent to at least what's been discussed and contemplated about moving the formal entry to the high school to that upper, I believe it's northeastern corner of the building right here. So this would be a dedicated lot. Really try to clarify the site circulation that you have on this campus, which is fairly confusing. And then there would be a second artery that would come back out from the high school campus to Dry Fork. So you can see these lines that are still here. That's all the stuff that currently exists in and around the junior school. So there's that big driveway parking area and then the radius one on the corner. So when all this work is done, there's a lot of green space on the corner of that intersection. If we zoom in on the central campus, I just walked through all this, but it'll give you a little bit better picture again of that entry sequence. The slide has been rotated to make it fit a little bit better on the screen, but here's that entry drive for the junior school. The red dot represents where the main entry is for the building. If we continue on around to the elementary school, same thing, drop-off loop right here with the main entry coming into the elementary school right here. At each of the elementary schools, you'll see that they also get an outdoor soft surface play area, so swing sets, jungle gyms, things like that. That's usually immediately adjacent to hard surface play areas, so if it's recess time, all the kids are basically in the same area. If we look at the Crosby site, We don't show all of the existing infrastructure on here. These sites are fairly small, particularly with existing buildings and existing traffic patterns on site. So one of the earliest things we started to plan, which really drove some of the earliest iterations on the floor plan, is how can we maintain a very safe and secure site during all phases of construction and also bring these buildings out of the ground safely. So essentially what's happening is, if this is New Haven Road, this is the existing sanitary sewer area on the corner. That will stay. So all the existing building is up front here, right off the road. We will construct, Pete will construct, the new elementary school to the rear of the site. There will be fences everywhere. There will be a dedicated construction entry drive at each one of the sites. Parents, kids, contractors will be 100% separated. So what will likely happen is that this, which will be the bus drop-off and delivery drive, will serve as that construction entrance. So they will set up all their trailers and equipment and stuff here while they construct the building. Once this building is constructed, Pete mentioned that last summer where people can move into the buildings over basically 3 months. That's when Pete's team will come back and abate and tear down and then finish the site at this campus and at the Harrison campus. So we build to the back, everything's done, building is vacated, we abate the hazardous material, we demolish the building, we finish the site out. You can see again the soft surface play back here, adjacent to the hard surface parking lot. Excuse me. Similar setup at Harrison. The existing building sits up front here. Same strategy. We build to the rear of the campus, construct a new building, construct a new bus parking lot, drop-off area, soft surface play area. Again, we can gate that off once the last bus leaves in the morning, and that can stay locked until buses come to pick up at the end of the day. So this can be used throughout the course of the day. These bus parking lot areas also, just as a note, double as extra parking if there's a big play or there's Grandparents' Day or something. All of this pavement, you can see the little white lines here, that can be striped for a typical car parking lot too. Concept here is that we'll bring people in off of Broadway. They will loop through this way. Again, we drop off curbside to come into the main front door and then back out. We've had a couple of meetings with city representatives, and this is a recent outcome from the most recent meeting, which was they really desired a second access point from Elm Street, which totally makes sense to help alleviate all the traffic that will be coming from up here, to allow this to be a right turn in. They would wait here, they would have a stop sign here, before then they could get in the queue and drop off a kid or pick up a kid, okay? I'm going to turn it over to Jenny now, and she's going to show you pretty stuff.
Okay. We're going to start by looking at the floor plans, but move really quickly into looking at the buildings in 3D. So if the floor plan doesn't make a ton of sense to you, we're going to eventually walk through it live. So it's really exciting. Our 3 elementary schools are very similar to each other, and those on the Crosby and Harrison sites are going to be identical. So there are a few differences at the central campus, and I'll show you that in a minute. So just to orient you, the main entry is here with the administration off to the side in purple. You're seeing a secure entry vestibule here. So after hours, once all the students are in the building, all of these doors will lock down. So you as a visitor will have to be buzzed into the building, into the reception, and then released into the building itself. So you'll have a very secure situation, be able to keep tabs on who's in the building at all times. Once you do come into the main space, you are into the student dining room. We wanted to create a really welcoming environment, but we really wanted to use as much square footage as possible to support education here. So we didn't want to create a large, grand lobby that didn't support the kids during the day. So again, by having the dining room double as gathering space, welcoming space, event space, we're able to really put as much into the academic area as possible. Adjacent to the dining room is our gymnasium. And one of the reasons we did that is because there's going to be an operable wall between them. So you could have events for up to 500 plus people in the elementary schools. You wouldn't necessarily have to come to the activity center here for events, performances, etc. We have a stage that's in alignment with those. So again, you could have pretty formal presentations and events. But again, wanting to use square footage wisely, that stage is actually going to double as the music classroom. So there will also be an operable wall separating the stage from the dining room. So during the day, you have two completely acoustically separate spaces that can create a music classroom going on with lunch, going on with a gym class. There's a large group restroom down here and a family restroom, again, to support students during the day, but also those larger events. This area is our main mechanical and custodial spaces, so where deliveries will come and where the main equipment will be in the building. Green is the kitchen, again, adjacent to that dining room space. As we go down the main hall, the art room is in orange. So again, a great opportunity to put student artwork on display in a fairly public area. And then you come to our learning community. This is a 2-story volume, so the floors actually stack and are mostly identical, except we have our kindergarten classrooms on the first floor, which are a little bit larger than our typical classrooms. You're seeing a lot of extra space in between these spaces, and the decision was made to not just have classrooms on either side of an 8-foot hallway. We wanted, again, to create as much space to support education as possible. So these are what we call extended learning areas, or ELAs, not English language arts. Our lingos and your lingos collide there. But again, these are spaces where you can pull classes out, bring in guest speakers, use them for special education intervention, lots of things. We're all actually using one of them for library. So again, the goal is to have a flexible environment at all times. The greenish color are these small group rooms. So again, whether that's a student working with a tutor, a parent volunteer, or a group of 5 students working on a project, that can be flexible. The group restrooms are central here in the academic community. Special education rooms are in purple, so they're kind of scattered around the community. And then we have 5 classrooms per grade level on each floor. So again, it would possibly be kindergarten, 1st grade, 2nd grade. Going upstairs, again, it should look very familiar. We just replaced the 4 kindergarten rooms with 5 additional classrooms for grades 3, 4, and 5. Again, some of those common core learning spaces, bathrooms in the middle, classrooms on either side. When you go to the central campus, things, again, should look really familiar. And this piece is identical between all 3 buildings. The differences occur in the academic wings themselves. And that's because we add your 3 MD unit classrooms in this building. So again, there's additional purple special education spaces on the 1st floor and on the 2nd floor. Those special education rooms will have restrooms and showers associated with them. And again, are integral to your learning communities, so they're a part of that academic core. Need to hit play. So we're going to walk you through the building. This is just going to be in black and white, so we want to give you a sense of the volumes and how the spaces might start to feel. And then the next time you come, this will be in color. So it's going to get really exciting. So again, here we're in the main office space, going into that student dining space. So the stage or music classroom is up those risers to the left, and then the operable wall between the student dining and the gym is closed in this view, so it's 2 separate spaces. We're going into the gymnasium. So there will be 4 backboards in here, and we're hoping that the budget can support some bleachers. The stage wall here is shown open, so again, you can see the depth of stage you would have for performances. This hallway connecting the core to the academic, I think, is a great opportunity for us to look at graphics in the building. We've talked about maybe a community history wall, things that could be unique for each building. The art room is to the right here. So big windows into all the classroom spaces. There will be really nice daylighting. And it's subtle here, but we actually slope the ceilings in the classrooms to be able to get the windows up as high as possible to bring in daylighting. So this is one of those extended learning areas that I talked about. This one would serve as your primary library space. So lots of bookcases, opportunity for soft seating, table space. Upstairs here, you're going to see some larger openings into the classroom, so double doors. Again, we're hoping that the budget can support having this larger connection between the classrooms and the extended learning areas, so teachers can really take advantage of that space, let their students work out there on projects, and still be able to keep a visual and acoustic connection to them. The bathrooms in this building will have a half-height wall at the sinks, so teachers will be able to watch the students as they're washing their hands. So one thing you're seeing off to the right, as we're starting to think about materials here, you're seeing that slatted wall. Again, one thing we're thinking about is how to use all surfaces to support education. So we're considering possibly a slat wall that you could hang student work on. Here you're seeing an operable wall between two classroom spaces. So again, teachers could open the wall and co-teach with their neighbor, and through the larger double doors again, extend their classroom into that common space. So again, you're seeing different furniture and flexible options in the commons. You know, the goal is to provide a different experience than the students would get in the classroom itself. And again, really nice daylighting and connection to the site. So Jeffrey's going to talk you through the exterior of the building.
We are showing color on these. Just another note, we're at the point where we're just now really beginning to select what those finishes would be and then have review meetings with the district. I can tell you that the exterior of all these buildings is predominantly brick. So everything that's at least white on these renderings is brick. We're moving around the gymnasium right now. If you recall seeing some of the windows on the inside, it's those windows there. We're moving around to the rear of the building. But anything that's white on here is brick. Anything that is a shade of gray is brick. We're not suggesting that everything will stay exactly white or exactly that shade of gray. There's a lot of work that's done to select the most appropriate finishes. This back corner here is really that utility area for the building. So mechanical yard is off to the left. Kitchen is right there up that walkway. And then we move around towards the exterior courtyard area, which if you walk down that sidewalk, you go to the art room, or if you come into that last ELA that we just ended at, you would see the bus entry at the elementary schools that comes into that ELA. Again, big windows into each one of the academic spaces in ELA areas. We're moving along now the two-story academic wing, and we're making our way back around towards the front of the building. Even the little bit of green that you'll start to see, we'd say pixelated here, is in our minds brick, and it starts to get much more dense as we get closer to the main front door to reinforce the brand colors of the district. Those kindergarten classrooms are on the first floor. We're now looking at a one-story wing, which is the administrative suite, and then ultimately we'll end looking essentially right back at the front door again. So we come into that secure vestibule underneath a canopy. Building administration is immediately on your left, and those big windows above the canopy provide good light immediately into that student dining room.
So we're going to go through the same process with the junior school, so much bigger floor plan, so everything gets a little bit smaller here. Colors are similar though, so main entry down here with our administration in purple. Again, our secure entry vestibule. And similar to the elementary school, we are entering into our student dining space. Especially at a junior level, the thought is that the student dining can be used from start of the day till end of the day. When lunch isn't happening, this should be a place where teachers want to bring their students to work on projects and spend time. You'll see in the movie that there is what we call a learning stair in this space. Again, to make it a multi-purpose space, this stair is someplace where students could just hang out, or you could bring several groups of students to listen to a guest speaker, have a performance, potentially put the band upstairs and have students down in the media or the dining room for performances. So again, we want this to be another performance space, so that it's an option to the activity center or coming over here to the larger gymnasium space. Off of that central core, we also have what we're calling our community room. This is a meeting space for about 80 people, so a size room that the district is currently lacking. So again, good opportunities for the community. Also off of that dining room is a maker space, which is connected to our outdoor courtyard. So again, providing your students with different opportunities to work outside, work with tools, and have different resources in the building. Art is down to the side here in orange, and then our main unit special education rooms are up here in purple. There's a life skills classroom to also support special ed. Again, our building services, mechanical spaces are back here in gray. Continuing down the hall here, our main gymnasium and locker rooms are in purple off of an event entry here. Also off of the event entry are our 2 music classrooms and a health classroom. So kind of a different suite here for specials. Continuing down the hall, we get to our learning community. And here the learning community is actually 3 stories high. So 1 story per grade level. They are identical, so 6th grade doesn't have to be on one floor and 8th grade on another. That could change year to year over time. The plan is broken down to have 3 teaching teams. So there's 1 team with 3 classrooms and a science room and 3 classrooms, 3 classrooms and a science room. So it's kind of divided into these 3 areas. There are also 3 small group rooms, so 1 group room per teaching team. And then again, in green, kind of these smaller extended learning areas to provide different opportunities for the students. In the center area, there's a teacher workroom, group bathrooms, a kind of bonus classroom that would likely be for Spanish, French, and tag, and then again, our special education resource rooms embedded in the learning communities. On the 2nd floor, the academic community is identical to what I just talked about, and the middle piece gets really exciting. So at the top of the learning stair, what you're going to see is our library space, and it is bookended by the STEAM and technology Great Oaks program classrooms. So really active environment, again, putting student work on display. You're going to see a lot of glass here. Upstairs, we also have an auxiliary gym that overlooks the main gym. So when we go into the main gym space, look up and you'll see our 2nd gym, which has a middle school sized court and could be used for wrestling, physical education, etc. And then our 3rd floor is just a repeat of the academic spaces below. So we're going to walk you through this one too. So coming into the main office, again, from here, coming into that student dining space, you can see the learning stair in the center. And again, you're looking up to the media center space, and you can start to see those STEAM labs open with glass on the side there. So even from the front door, you really have a connection to the 2nd floor. This is that community room that I talked about. This is the start of the art classrooms on the right side. So we'll take a peek in there. One thing you're seeing is we are looking at connecting the art rooms. Again, thinking if they have different functions, maybe one's geared more towards ceramics and another drawing, again, students could kind of transfer between studios as they needed to. So we're coming into one of our learning communities. So this is a teaching team here with their extended learning area. I'm going to go upstairs. So on the second floor, we're showing the larger openings, again, to show one option for how the classrooms might connect to these common spaces. This is one of the small group rooms. So again, you can see there's some glass there so teachers can see what students are working on. Another small group room. So here the thought is that 2 classrooms in each teaching team would be connected with the operable wall. So again, here you're seeing it open, so teachers would have a 1,600 square foot area to be co-teaching in. There would be 9 science rooms in the building, so that's what you're seeing here. So plenty of storage, lab space, flexible furniture. Lockers are being concentrated towards the front of each academic pod. So again, right outside of the classrooms, there won't be lockers. They'll be more concentrated away from the classrooms. So our STEAM labs are coming up on the right. So again, flexible spaces, looking at having cord reels, a workshop area, utility sink, place to really work on projects, get messy, have fun. This is the media center space, which is bookended by 2 glass small group rooms. So again, even though this is an open media center, if you need a space to have some quiet, you still have that opportunity. We are looking at the bookcases here being on wheels. So again, to make this space flexible, if the furniture needed to push out of the way to have an event upstairs, you could do that also. So the kitchen, doors beyond, and you can see a range of furniture in here. Again, thinking about how students could use this during the day. We have a range of booths and high-top tables, softer furniture. So we're now going down the hallway down to the event entry in the gymnasium. Again, I think this is a really good opportunity for graphics or community history. So I think we'll be working with neighborhood teams to think about how we could really brand these spaces for Harrison. This is a stair up to that auxiliary gym. There is an elevator across from it also. The main gym on the first floor does have a high school size basketball court. Bleachers for about 800. And then you can see the auxiliary gym upstairs. We are looking at there being a high wall with a plexiglass wall on top of that, if you've ever been to like a hockey arena. And then there would be a net on top of that so balls couldn't go flying over top, but you still get that visual connection between the spaces. The instrumental room is on the corner, kind of becomes really a jewel box with these windows, really a nice space. And then back out into that event entry, which again, we have a nice opportunity for graphics and branding that we'll be considering for when people come into that building.
Okay, we're outside of the junior school. We're a little bird right now. Our main front door is going to be right here under this canopy. That special events entry and music area that Jenny just landed on is off here to the left. So the administrative suite at this building, again, is immediately on your left upon entering the building. We have those 2-story academic wings here, and then the 3-story academic wing here for grades 6, 7, and 8. We're making our way around to the back of the building. Those are not the real trees that we're going to plant, by the way. So again, that 3-story academic wing, 2-story academic areas, bus entry. The large volumes that are green are those main competition gym, the multi-purpose gym area, and then the cafeteria kitchen area. Here's that special events entry under a nice canopy. Music classroom on the end of the building. Now we're getting a little closer down towards the administrative suite, and ultimately we're going to end back at the front door. There's a nice conference room right on the corner of the administrative suite. We hand drew all these things like they're cartoons. It's really a flip book that, like, you know, it's old school technology. So that's really the conclusion of our program. We appreciate your patience tonight and your attentiveness. As Jenny mentioned, the interior design team is moving full speed ahead with district people on refining and developing what the buildings are going to look like on the inside from a color and material palette standpoint. Her team has had, 100 plus departmental meetings out here or more. So they've really gotten into the weeds with each department on what they need to be able to teach kids the most effectively. So that has really directly informed how these buildings have been planned and arranged. On the architectural side, on the engineering side, we're in a similar mode of providing a lot more technical clarity to how we're going to physically construct these buildings. So we have weekly meetings with our teams, and then I mentioned earlier we've already had a couple of meetings with some of the local agencies. We met with the mayor twice, fire department twice, building department once. We have to go through the same process with Hamilton County. So we're at the stage now where we have enough information on paper. We can walk them through what's planned for each of the buildings and each of the campuses. They can help respond and make recommendations on how they want to service each building. The fire department in the last meeting, as an example, requested some connectors on each of the campuses so they don't have to drive trucks over the grass, and they told us what the length limit for their hoses were. So we're at that point where we're taking that type of information and now making sure the buildings work that way. So as Pete mentioned, our goal is to start moving dirt in the summer, and then you'll start seeing the buildings physically come up out of the ground. And then it's going to look like nothing is happening for a period of time. And then all of a sudden, one day you're going to drive past one of the sites and you're going to see the buildings out of the ground and the walls are topped out and the roofs are on. And that's when it starts to get really special, because you can really, these are great. You can see what's planned digitally, but when you really start to see it come out of the ground and take shape, it's pretty special. So thanks again. We'll take some Q&A, John, unless you want to say anything. And if you don't want to ask a question in front of the big group, like John said, we'll hang out here for a while. You can feel free to come down, and we'd be happy to talk with you and stay here as long as we need. Thank you.
If you got a question you want to ask in front of everybody, feel free to come down. You have two. We have two mics.
Shout it out.
Yeah. Are you speaking junior high, elementary, or both? Okay. Yeah. So the question was, for those our fans at home, the question is, how are the cafeteria doors really secured in both the elementary and the junior high buildings, given their location at the front of the building? Is that correct? Okay.
we take a lot of care with safety and security of kids in buildings, right? That really begins at the site level and how we control traffic, and then it begins at the building level too, in the point of entry. So when we approach the building, during a normal school day, I would say what's typical in the strategy is that at arrival time, a dedicated set of doors will be open at the bus entry, and then a dedicated set of doors at the front of the building where parents can drop off will be open. Kids can freely enter the building. The minute we hit 8:03 or whatever time school will officially start for the day, that interior set of doors at the vestibule will go into lockdown mode, as will the bus entry doors, and they are now physically secure. Any door along the exterior of the building, whether it's one of the egress doors out of the gymnasium or it's doors coming out of a second floor stairwell that are also part of an emergency egress path, those doors are always on lockdown from the outside, and every exterior door is then digitally monitored back at the reception desk. So if a door is propped open, or a door is open that shouldn't be, there will be an audible alarm that will go off at the reception desk at a couple of computer terminals. So there are notifications built into how we can now digitally secure and lock and monitor every exterior door. So if I'm a visitor coming at 8:05 and the building is locked down, I'll be able to push a button on the outside of the building. It's going to have a little camera and a little speaker there. I can say, my name is Jeffrey. I'm here to pick up my son because he's sick. The administrator will have the ability to see my face. That person can then choose to allow me to enter the building or not. Once they allow me to enter the building, the only place I can get into is that administrative suite. From there, I have to then be buzzed back into the rest of the building. Obviously, there's a lot of glass, which can be a concern. I will tell you that unless we build a prison, people can still get through glass. There are certainly advances in technology of how we can make glass better and stronger and more resilient. We will be including what's called an alternate at all the main entries at any area where we have low glass for security glazing. So it provides you some extra time in the event there's a really unnecessary incident happening on one of the school grounds that buys you time. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yep. Line of sight works both ways. It's really important for administrators, for school personnel to see what's going on, whether it's internal to the building and it's kids doing something they're not supposed to, or it's a really angry parent approaching the building. I've heard that never happens here, so we don't expect it to, but that line of sight is super important. Yep.
One other addition is the walk-up that you'll see from the curb to get to the front door. They're lengthier than people would anticipate, and that provides kind of another layer too. When our folks are watching out, they can see who's coming in. A lot of the parents they can recognize. If things are off, they can recognize that too. So they're very aware, and the walk-up space is going to give us some more time. Like the junior high walk-up time is like 2 seconds because you can get out of your car and walk right to the door. Then you look at Harrison Elementary, it's a little further if you're parking at the curb and walking up. So the walk-up piece is a major factor, I think, that people don't really consider, but it's a major piece. We got a question over here. Yes, sir. I think that mic's hot.
So the way things are set up, it's very organized and everything. Is there a scheme on how individual elementary schools or the junior school could easily be expanded if necessary in the future, or would this theory be build a new school if a new school is needed?
The theory is not to go build a new school. The fight to get these four was very worthwhile. Each of the four schools will have portions of the building or areas of the building to where additions will be very easy to do. And we did that on purpose from the very beginning, that if we were going to add 4 classrooms, 8 classrooms, 12 classrooms, keep in mind we're talking 25 plus kids per room. So 12 classrooms is a pretty big addition. We're talking 300 more kids in that one building. So each of the 4 new schools will have the capability to add on at different areas of that building over time as growth continues, and we fully expect it to. But eventually, like Mason, it's going to peak out. It's going to plateau. So we do have projections for the next 10 years. I think those projections may be a little short, but even so, we've built in enough space even with these current buildings to where we should be in a pretty good spot. The two arguments we made on the front end is we do not want to have trailers in front of brand new buildings because we're too big. The other part is on the other side is we don't want to build a building with empty classrooms where there's 6, 10 empty classrooms sitting there. So that's from the state and the architect standpoint is we can't have mass excess space. So we plan to utilize our projections. We added on a little bit. We cushioned them a little bit for added growth down the road. And our goal is not to have to build another school, another elementary school for growth purposes. If that makes sense. Good question. Any others? Full group. Yes.
So we saw where with the sporting events, we saw where the high school would practice. What about the junior high?
The junior high practice fields are going to be dedicated to. There's going to be specific spots where those teams are going to practice at. There's tons of grass space, and Mr. Mybers isn't here anymore, but we have a central campus plan map where you can see where the junior high practice fields are as well. So we do have those configured. He was not going to let us put a central map up there without having every team's practice field laid out and pigeonholed. So I hope when people see that central campus snapshot of that 90 acres, 85 acres-ish, people get excited because it's incredible. It truly is a game changer. I'm not saying that just to say it. It's going to be insane when that thing gets done. When you drive up right now where the tennis courts are almost flooded, with all the water, when you drive up and that's a 2-lane road and you drive back and see the layout, it's going to be incredible when it's all done. But fair question. Yes, sir. Yeah. Good question. The question was, is there going to be a new traffic pattern, kind of a new setup at that major intersection with Dry Fork and West Road? And the answer is yes, traffic studies have been concluded. Obviously, there's going to have to be some road improvements there as far as what that looks like exactly at this point. We don't have that nailed down, but we will, and it will be improved because we are adding 650 new kids out there at that location. Are we there?
Don't know if there will be a light yet. The last meeting that we had with the city, we brought them up to speed with where we were on the site analysis. We definitely recognize that there are pre-existing conditions at that intersection as well. You have the city with jurisdiction on one side, you have the county with jurisdiction on the other. Obviously, we have a new school being constructed. We're adding kids to the existing campus, so there's really 3 entities that have an investment in improving that intersection, which we've already talked is a great opportunity for those 3 entities to pursue some joint grant applications at a statewide level for funding to improve that intersection. So ultimately what happens there, I can't tell you right now. It could be a roundabout, could be a light, could be widening it and providing additional turn lanes. I don't know what that solution is ultimately going to be. We're at the kind of early third of that conversation right now.
One additional point on that, and it does get tricky with the city goes up to the middle of the lane on Dry Fork, and then the county's on the other side. But the other piece, too, to keep in mind is with the 3 schools being there, they are going to be on staggered start and finish times, so there will be a little bit of a buffer. But even if you drive up now, there's still congestion with the high school and junior high being a half hour, 40 minutes off. So even with the schools being staggered 40, 45 minutes, there's still going to be congestion that we've got to work through with some improvements at that intersection for sure. Yes, sir. Yeah, we've not gotten to that point yet. We're not there, but obviously it's a major concern for sure. We do plan on getting to, we are working with the city, obviously. We're going to start, we have not met with the county just yet, full scale, but we're going to. And it's going to take all three entities to come together to a consensus on what to do. Any other full group? Yes, sir.
In that same vein, what's the percentage chance that access is going to happen on the New Haven Road?
That's a great question. What's the percent? What are the odds of us getting that access out to New Haven Road? And we're working with Cincinnati State, the airport right now, who owns that land, an area out to New Haven. Cincinnati State also works with the FAA. And the FAA, whenever you involve a federal agency, sometimes there's a little more lag time in the decision-making process. So we're working with the airport as well as the FAA to come up with a possible land swap solution, because we own the land right up near the runway. And basically, we are talking about possible land swaps of the land that abuts that property, that's ours, which if you saw on the central campus where those practice fields are, there's a 250-foot line from the center of the runway to the edge of those practice fields. Basically, we would swap that land for the parcel, 7 acres or so that they have out to New Haven to gain access for that road. Where it butts into New Haven, if you know where the goats are, down there, that's where we're talking of connecting, and there's a little ravine. So we would have to build a culvert to get over the ravine and then connect into New Haven. So the cost would be pretty significant to do so. And the other part is we have to think about line of sight for cars coming around those bends both ways. So if we have buses coming out of there, do we have like blinking 25 or school zone 20 mile an hour to keep people slowing down so we can get buses out through there? So that's another thing that we've considered. We've been in talks with the airport for a possible land swap for approximately 8 months now. It's still moving. What are the odds? Getting back to your original question, I'd say 50-50. A couple months ago, I would have said 70-30. Now I'm about 50-50. So we're waiting to hear back from them. The ball's kind of in their court, but that's been a possibility. Yeah. I'm sorry, I can't hear. Great question. Boundary lines. Have the boundary lines been redrawn yet? We've done a preliminary study on where those boundary lines would be and what the numbers would look like. We've done a rooftop study to see what the numbers would look like, because for us it's a numbers game. For you it's a heart thing. It's a kid thing. Where's my kid going to school? We plan to have that completed by this summer. We plan to pass that around this summer, or info item it out to the public this summer. Good question. Yes, sir. Question was, all the buildings are above grade. Is there any tornado shelter type environments for the new schools?
All the buildings are above grade. All areas are above grade. There are not what we would call a full-blown storm shelter that's like hurricane-proof, but there are lots of areas inside of the building that are masonry, like typically, if you think of a large group restroom, they are floor-to-ceiling concrete block, 8 inches thick. So there are multiple areas like that that are distributed throughout the building, that in the event of a tornado, kids can go there, staff can go there.
Other full group questions? Like I said, we're going to break out into small groups here, and we're all going to come up and stand between the upper bowl and the lower bowl here, and we'll answer any and all questions you have that you may not feel comfortable asking in front of everybody. We'll probably end filming at that point, but once we break into the small groups, feel free to grab us. We're here until nobody else is. Mr. Mybers can give us updates on the girls' score. Yes? So the question was, correct me if I'm wrong, are the contractors that we use going to have to use prevailing wages? Is that correct?
Yeah, the state,
Got to take the mic.
the state of Ohio requirements right now for the OFCC funded projects is non-prevailing. 10 years ago, it was all prevailing wage. When some of the tax credits that were out about 5-6 years ago forced federal prevailing wage, but right now in this market, the non-prevailing work is the way the state mandates it. It doesn't mean we don't have organized labor within a lot of our subcontracts. Probably I would say on the last 4 projects we've been involved with, it's probably about a 30% mix, 70% non, open shop kind of companies, and about 30%, union organized companies. So it's a good mix. It's good for the the market. We like to try to keep the doors open for everyone, and right now it's no unknown fact that labor shortages are at a premium right now for skilled trades.
Yes, sir. Yes, ma'am. Sorry. First question is, are all the new schools going to have air conditioning? The answer is a resounding yes. Here, 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 here. Uh-huh. They will also have heat. We're going to sell everything. Absolutely. We were talking about that a little while ago. We are going to sell anything and everything for the Pride Walls. We're going to need help, folks. Now, I'm glad I had the chance to pitch this. We are going to need your help with the history and Pride Walls in each of these schools. And there are people out there, the Harrison Historical Society, that have photos from way back when, and I've seen them. They're awesome. Black and whites, 1925. We're going to need those photos to build some of the coolest Pride Walls that are around in these schools so that our kids can connect the dots to the history of these schools. That's going to be extremely important. As far as the gym floors, we got some ideas for the gym floor wood. I've already had people say, I want these 3 lockers. Can I put my name on them? And the kids are looking at me like, what? That are using them now. But yes, we plan to, there's some things that we want to keep, like at Harrison Elementary, that drinking fountain upstairs. How do we utilize some of those treasures in each of the schools and bring them into the new? And that's going to be a challenge, but one that we're going to take up. How do we use possibly some gym planks on different parts of the new floors? Is that even possible? So there's ways to connect the old with the new, and that's what we want to do. We want to bridge that gap as best we can. And we are going to plan on selling stuff. I've heard of districts at Fairfield, they had piles of bricks that they would put out front, and they'd say one day it was like head high. The next day they came out and they're all gone. And they have no idea where they went or who took them or what happened with them, but people took them. So we plan to do the same. We're not just going to bring the bulldozer out and just say sayonara. We want to make sure that those keepsakes are there, and we want to make sure we can advertise kind of a timeline of what's going to be out and when as we go through some of the demo process. Good question. Yes, sir.
I just had questions about technology in each room. We're going to have smart boards, there are going to be 3D printers, is there going to be monitors for the teacher? What kind of technology is being implanted in each room? And is that included in the cost that we've already put forward?
So the question is, technology in the classrooms, what's that going to look like? We talking projectors, smart boards, 3D printing, et cetera. And then is that already in the cost that we have for this project, or is that going to be basically an add-on at the end?
So yes, the technology that I'm going to talk to you about is within the budget. So the plan is within each general classroom, they're going to have a wall-mounted short-throw interactive projector. So if you follow me, it's a projector that's going to be mounted to the wall and actually project onto a marker board. And then it uses integrated sensors and pens to become smart and interactive. The classrooms will also have sound amplification, so teachers will be able to either carry a microphone or have something around their neck and have their voice come through the ceiling speakers. So every student should be able to hear what teachers are saying. Those speakers will also double if they're playing a video or audio in the classroom space. In specialty areas like the STEAM and technology labs, we are looking at mobile technology, so mobile monitors so they can take them out into the library space, back into the classrooms. In some of the larger performance areas, like at the learning stair, looking at a projector, so again, you could do a presentation like this in that space. So lots of cool stuff that is within the project scope. Oh, 3D printers, so in the junior school, we are looking at 3D printers that would be district provided in the STEAM rooms and the maker space. We are providing the capabilities for plotters within the maker space. There already is a plotter for the Great Oaks rooms. We are considering a spray booth in the steam room areas and then possibly a fume hood in the makerspace. So again, lots of opportunities in that building. In the elementary school, we haven't talked specifically about 3D printers and technology, but the thought is that while one of those extended learning areas is going to be more about books, the other one is going to be more of a mini makerspace area. So again, we'll provide storage, countertop, power, et cetera, that if you ever did add a 3D printer and things like that, you'd have the infrastructure for it.
Yep. So the question is the ability to, for example, if a student had a tablet or a laptop, to be able to project what they have on their device up on the main board, which we actually do at the high school in several classrooms currently. So would that be happening in the new buildings, the new elementaries, and the new middle school? Yes.
Yes.
Yes. Yes, sir. So the question was kind of a piggyback as far as a growth question earlier in terms of increased enrollment. What do we have capacity-wise in our current schools? And would adding on to these current new school, or would adding on to these new schools require another levy? Let me start with the last question, then I'll work back. To add on to these buildings would require another levy down the road, if in fact we had to add 4 classrooms at, say, 2 of the schools. They would give us a number on what that addition would cost, and we'd have to go back to the taxpayers to add on to these buildings. As far as the overall max enrollment for these schools,
There's sort of a simple but technical answer. So like in a typical academic classroom that's, say, 810 square feet, that classroom is planned to accommodate on day one somewhere between 20 to 25 kids plus a teacher. From a building code perspective, that same 810 square foot classroom is really suitable from a code perspective for up to 40 kids. So there's a natural built-in ability for the building to accommodate more kids in a classroom. Now, putting 40 kids plus a teacher in an 810 square foot classroom is not an ideal teaching environment. But if you have a really big class one year and that 20 to 22 to 25 kids in a typical classroom has to swell up to 28 or 29, that's totally within what can be expected in this building to allow for that normal ebb and flow, or even if it's kind of a sustained growth until you get to a tipping point where every room is at capacity, every room has absorbed and now has 30 kids in it before you might be at a point where you would consider doing an addition for more academic space. Is this another technology question? Okay. The answer is yes.
Okay, we got bleachers in our elementary schools. Awesome. Now, how do we not have bleachers in our elementary gym rooms? That doesn't make sense to me. There's no bleachers.
No, there are bleachers in there. The district has to pay for those directly. The state does not support bleachers in elementary schools. Yes. Yes. Thousands and thousands of bleachers. 4 rows of bleachers per elementary school in each gymnasium. One more question, and then we're going to, in respect of everybody's time, move to the small group. Yes, ma'am.
designated student parking for high schoolers at the current high school? So, right. So what we want to do is we want to separate right now, or in the future when these new buildings are done, we want to separate where parents are dropping off kids and visitor parking to be kind of where the trailers are right now with the junior high over there between the trailers and the baseball field. And then the student parking is going to stay where it is now, student and staff, but there's going to be a separation between the two. Right now, high school drop-off is kind of Frogger, just like Harrison Elementary drop-off, only multiple cars coming through. So what we're going to try to do is eliminate that with parent drop-offs, and where students park, and then they come into a separate student entrance versus the main entrance on the northeast corner of the building, if that makes sense. So I guess to answer your question, yes, we are going to have designated high school student parking, similar to what we have now. Our goal is to separate it from the parent drop-off, which has created somewhat of a mess in the mornings and afternoon. So thank you for the great questions, all of them. They were great. We're going to be here for as long as you need. We are going to head up to the in-between areas here. Feel free to grab any of us. We'll also have administrators up here to help out with any questions you might have. And really appreciate you guys coming out tonight. I hope you leave excited. I hope if you have questions, you get them answered before you leave. Thanks for coming out to Town Hall number 2.